Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone. In this occasion, we'll meet again in virtual class. As usual, I will share the material for our third meeting. In this meeting, we are going to have a discussion about communicative competence. Yeah, communicative competence relate to language ability that we are mastering, or we try to cover all the skills of language. We relate that abilities with the competence. In this case, communicative competence. Communicative competence here, the competence that we have in order to communicate with the other. Yeah. So in what condition or what kind of elements or points that we should learn in acquiring the communicative competence. So today we are going to learn about the theory of the communicative competence, also the models that proposed by the expert. Yeah. Later you will know what kinds of competence that should be mastered by someone when the person is said to have communicative competence. Okay, so let's start with the definition. So communicative competence, yeah, this is for general definition, yeah. Communicative competence can be defined as the ability to use language or to communicate in a culturally appropriate manner in order to make meaning and accomplish social tasks with efficacy and fluency through extended interaction. Yeah, if you pay attention on this definition, so this relate to the ability to use language. That is the point. Yeah, the ability to use language. What is actually the purpose of language itself? It of course to communicating what we thought, what we feel, what we know. Yeah, we tell that to the other. We tell that to the other person. Yeah, in what condition? On what condition? In our cultural condition, what kinds of appropriate manner is accepted by our culture so that the meaning that we want to convey it is achieved. Yeah, and then the social tasks in which this language is used can be accomplished. Yeah, fluency with efficacy. So in the communicative competence, when it is built, then there will be interaction. Yeah. So that is the general definition. But we have to know first how this competence, or how this communicative competence uh, regulated or formulated in the very beginning. Who actually proposed this communicative competence? Yeah, long time ago there are so many experts deals or discussed about communicative competence. So let's talk about the initial origin. So in the beginning, at 1965, Chomsky, you still remember Chomsky? Yeah, this is the same person, yeah. Chomsky distinguished between competence and performance. Competence that he mentioned here is the speaker hearer's knowledge of his language. The speaker hearer's knowledge of his language. It means that who speak and to whom the speak is referred should be grounded by the knowledge. Yeah, it means that when I speak something to you, it means that what we are talking about um, must be in the same level, or I mean in this case, I know the ability of this language and you know the ability of that language. This language is the tools that we use to communicate each other. You get the point? Yeah. So that is the speaker-hearer knowledge. So both of us, you and me, know the knowledge of this language. Okay. So that is the competence. While for the performance is the actual use of language in concrete situation. We both know the knowledge. We both know the theories. We both know, for example, the way the way we should communicate, but it is not called as performance until I practice this knowledge with you in real condition. You got the point? So that is called as performance. Yeah. And the other expert, Himes, react to Chomsky's definition. He feels that Chomsky omits almost everything socio-culturally significant. He adds, the goal of the broad theory of competence can be said to show the ways in which the systematically possible, the feasible, and the appropriate are linked to produce and interpret actually occurring cultural behavior. So he thinks that Chomsky's definition is only regarding to socio-cultural significance. Yeah, he the hymns here he want to lead the thought that actually the main goal of competence here is to show the way that how the language systematically happens, yeah, how this language is feasible and appropriate, yeah. uh, Beside appropriate and feasible and also systematically, this should be able to be interpreted in in the context of cultural behavior. Yes, so it is not only socio-cultural significance, but the other elements or the other point should be put in the competence. Yeah, the communicative interference caused by socio-linguistic difference such as register and then lexicosyntax or pragmatics between dialects of language or between separate language that can cause well-intended grammatically correct locution that leads to misinterpreted. So that is from Himes, yeah, 1972. So he formulated four lenses for communicative competence. He leads to four big questions to the communicative competence. The first, the possibility that refer to whether a locution is grammatically possible or not. Yeah, whether the locution is grammatically possible or whether it is not grammatically possible. Yeah, and the next is feasible. This refers to whether the interlocutor can make use of the locution due to the psycholinguistic factors such as memory limitation or inability to process multiple nested clauses. So this feasible also being questioned. And then the third is about appropriateness. This refers to whether the locution meet the cultural expectation for the desired interaction in that context. Yeah, this appropriateness will actually really match with the culture we communicate with the other, whether our communication way reflect our culture and it is matched with the hearer culture or not. Yeah, and the next is occurrence. It refers to whether the locution is really made or not. So those four questions are given to the theories from Chomsky. So we have to take a look to the other definition from the other expert. Yeah, we have a definition from Noonan. Well, actually, this is the beginning of model for communicative competence. Yeah, Noonan said that communicative competence is the ability to deploy linguistic, interpersonal, and socio-cultural knowledge effectively for communicative purposes. So he underlined linguistic, interpersonal, and socio-cultural effectively. So he underlined these three elements that that form the main structure of communicative competence. Yeah. He also, uh, together with Richard Platt and Weber in 1985, they formulate the characteristic of CC or communicative competence. The communicative competence has characteristic in which a knowledge of grammar and vocabulary of language. So when the knowledge is talk about grammar and vocabulary, so this belongs to communicative competence. So you are said to have communicative competence when you know the grammar, you know the vocabulary of the language. So you can say that we can say that you have one of the characteristic of communicative competence. And the next characteristic is knowledge of rule of speaking, knowing how to begin and end conversation, knowing what topics can be talked about in different type of speech event, knowing which address form should be used with different person one speaks to and in different situation, means that this characteristic when you have communicative competence should be represented. Yeah. For example, when you talk to someone, when you have a conversation with the other, you know how to begin the conversation. You also know what topics that you are going to talk. Yeah, in what kinds of register that you use for that conversation, and then what address that you expected or that you want to reach when you start the conversation. This is one of the characteristic of communicative competence. And the next characteristic is knowing how to use and respond to different type of speech acts such as requests, apologies, thanks, and invitation. This also the next characteristic of common communicative competence. You are said to have communicative competence when you express your condition appropriately. For example, if you want to have something, then you can request that. In what kinds of form? Yeah, and when you make mistakes, and you want someone forgive your mistakes, then you use the expression of apologies. And when you want to thanks for the present or gift that given from someone else, then you know how to express your thankful. Yeah. And you want when you want to invite someone, you know how to say the invitation, like would you like to come to my house, like that, or would you like to go to the bookstore with me? You invite someone and you know how to use that, you know how to use the language so that you can invite someone. So that belongs to one of the characteristic of communicative competence. Yeah. And then the next is knowing how to use language appropriately. In this case, you know how to use language, for example, the language to talk to your friends, the language that you use to talk to your parents, and then the language that you use to talk to youngsters. Yeah. So you know to use your the language appropriately. So you cannot use that language arbitrary in arbitrary form to whatever level that you meet. Yeah, you meet with parents, with friends, or with youngster, you use the same form. I believe that in American style or British style, they have a specific structure in which they use to older or to younger. That's why we know the term of politeness and impoliteness. So that is the characteristic of communicative competence. Yeah. And the next, what we discuss here is how effective the communicative when we have the competence. Yeah, it means that this communicative competence to build the effective communication. Sorry, yeah. um, for the effectiveness of communicative, this belongs to the role taking. There is a need to achieve intersubjectivity between participants in communicative act. Yeah. So in this case, the participants need to be able to recognize the importance of other speakers' perspective by making inferences in order to encode a message. Yeah. So in this case, both participants, yeah, the speaker or the hearer, should be able to know the other's perspective so that the interaction can run very well. Yeah. And the next is also it is essential to feedback provided by the other speakers to monitor the output. That's why we have to respond. When someone speaks, we can respond. Yeah, of course, in the specified time and in the correct time and then appropriately. And then repeating a task enhances communicative efficiency greatly and affect the kind of strategies learners use to tackle the referential problem. So when we the repeat the information that we convey, yeah, so it lead to the more understandable meaning. Yeah, so it is okay to repeat, yeah, when someone hasn't got um the understanding. Okay, and then the next is it is determined by the nature of tasks and also influenced by learners factors such as personality and cognitive style. Of course, every individual has their own characteristic, and that's determine the way you have conversation or you communicate. Yeah, and we here it leads to the main theory of communicative competence. Yeah, the first is by Himes that I told you in the beginning. Yeah, that he argued to the Chomsky's theory. Yeah, so here he defined the communicative competence as an inherent grammatical competence, but also as the ability to use grammatical competence in a variety of communicative situations. So the underlined key here is the grammatical competence and the ability using that grammatical competence. Yeah, and the second one is communicative competence as the ability to function in a truly communicative setting, that is in a dynamic exchange in which linguistic competence must adapt itself to total informational input, both linguistic and paralinguistic, and one or more interlocutor savviness. Yeah, and the next is communicative competence as a synthesis of an underlying system of knowledge and skill needed for communication. This is from Cannell and Swain and Cannell at 1983. Yeah. This theory leads to what kinds of competence that we should have to be able to perform the communicative competence. Yeah. So we have the model from Canal at 1983. He said that to have communicative competence, at least someone should be able to perform four competence. Yeah. The first is grammatical competence. The second is social linguistic competence. The fourth is discourse competence. And then the fourth is strategic competence. Yeah. This model defined that when someone have communicative competence, he or she are able to master the knowledge of language code. It includes the grammatical rules, vocabulary, pronunciation, spelling, etc. So this knowledge should be mastered by someone when they are called to have communicative competence. The other competence for sociolinguistic, it deals with the socio-cultural code, yeah, such as appropriate applications of vocabulary, politeness, and style in the given situation. And for discourse, in this case, this is the ability to combine the language structure into different types of cohesive text, for instance, political speech, poetry, and the other field. Yeah. So it means that when you talk in different contexts or situation, you know what kinds of form, what kinds of structure of the text that you have to use. For example, if you talk to kindergarten children, you should not use sophisticated vocabulary. Yeah, you should not use a very complicated structure of language. So you should use a very simple language so that your hearer, in this case kindergarten students, will understand your language. Yeah, so this belongs to discourse competence. And then the strategic is the knowledge of verbal and non-verbal communication strategies to enhance the efficiency of communication and enable the learner in overcoming difficult when communication breakdowns occur. Yeah, what is the example? For example, when two people have conversation and then the other failed to understand the meaning from the speaker, he or she should know what strategy she or he have to use. For example, you cannot hear the word, so you can say, sorry, what do you say, like that. That is belong to strategic competence. Then the speaker will say, oh yeah, this is about that. Yeah, you repeat the language, you repeat the information. That also the strategy for what? To overcome the problem. The problem is unclear information. So that belongs to strategic competence. Year by year, the communicative competence is discussed. Yeah, and it becomes new formulations of communicative competence. We have Sales Murcia, Dornier, and Toro at 1995. They proposed a new model of communicative competence. So it completed the previous models from Canal. Yeah. In this case, they propose 5 competence that someone should be mastered when they acquiring the communicative competence. The first is discourse competence, the second is linguistic competence, and then the third is actional competence, the fourth socio-cultural competence, and the fifth strategic competence. So what makes it different with the previous one? This is from Canal. They have grammatical, sociolinguistic, discourse, and strategic. So here the grammatical is changed into linguistic, yeah, and it is added with a actional competence. Yeah, strategic is still there, sociolinguistic is combined with sociocultural. Yeah, so let's check this out. For the discourse, concerned about the selection, sequencing, arrangement of words, structure, sentences, utterances to achieve unified spoken and written text. So it still have the same idea with the previous one, how we select, how we sequence, and how we arrange the words and structure based on the specific context. Yeah, as what I have given you an example. Yeah, talk to children and talk to young older, or when you talk about political, when you talk about economic, when you talk about education, so you select specific words, specific terms, so it belongs to discourse competence. And for linguistic competence, it comprises the basic element of communication, such as sentence pattern and types, and then the constituent structure, the morphological inflection, and then the lexical resources, as well as the phonological and orthographic system needed to realize communication as a speech or writing. Means that all about the linguistic, yeah. So it is not simply only about grammar, for example, the structure of the tenses, but it also cover about the morphological, phonetical, phonological, and syntactical structure of the word, whether it is speech or written. Yeah. So when you speak, you have to make sure that the word chosen has form based on the morphological structure. And when you pronounce some words, you have to know that the sound exactly correct based on the phonological discussion. So this is larger or wider scope than grammatical. And the next, the actional competence, the new element in the model of CC that distinguishes from the previous one. Actional competence is defined as the competence in conveying and understanding communicative intent, matching actional intent with linguistic form that is closely related to interlanguage pragmatic. Yeah, so it deals with how someone's perspective when they speak or when they get the utterance. Yeah. And then the fourth is socio-cultural competence. It refers to speaker knowledge of how to express message appropriately within the overall social and cultural context of communication in accordance with the pragmatic factors related to variation in language use. Yeah. So when you have actional competence, yeah, so you must be understand about pragmatic, and then you relate that with the cultural and social interchange. Yeah, the social interchange. For example, you talk in this culture, and then you go to the other part of world that communicate with that with their language in which the culture is different, and then the pragmatic or the perspective of the people also different. Then you have to be carefully learn about that culture, so that the meaning that you convey to those people won't be misunderstanding. Yeah. And then next, the strategic competence cover the knowledge of communication strategies and how to use them. It is still the same with the previous one from Canal. Yeah, so this is the ability on how to overcome the problem in communication. And the next, yeah, this is the final. I mean, the main point of what we discussed, that when we use the language, when we have the knowledge of language, it is divided into two knowledge. The first is organizational, and the second one is the pragmatic. Organizational, how we organize the language in terms of grammatical and textual, while for pragmatic, how we use that language as a functional knowledge and sociolinguistic knowledge. Yeah, how the language function, and then how it is performed in social culture. Okay, so this is the more complete model of CC, and how it changed. Yeah, how it changed and developed by the expert. Yeah, so in the beginning of Canal and Swain in 1980, they divide only two, yeah, for grammatical competence and sociolinguistic competence. And then it is also discussed by Canal at 1983, that focus on grammatical competence and sociolinguistic competence. And then in Bachman and Palmer 1996, yeah, it is developed when the language knowledge has organizational knowledge that include the grammatical knowledge and textual, and the other part is pragmatic knowledge. It includes the functional knowledge and socio-linguistic knowledge. And Ockfir at 2005, they discuss the communicative competence as language competence, pragmatic competence, discourse competence, functional competence, and linguistic competence. These all are actually taken from the previous one. Yeah. So here the discourse competent, yeah, we have the strategic competence, discourse competence, strategic competence, and the strategic competence that set the goal, set the assessment, set the planning, yeah. So this is the development of CC models from the theories. So that's all our discussion today. I hope you understand the material today. I know it kinds a little bit complex, yeah, complex, but I hope you can understand that. You can rewind this video and listen to my explanation many times until you can understand what I explained just now, yeah. Because of that I know this is complex, so I will not give you any assignment. So I just need you to understand the point of communicative competence. Okay? So have a nice day. Stay healthy and stay happy. Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to like my video. Okay? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you next week. Bye.